Welcome all to the Phoenix Backups Podcast, your resource for all things cybersecurity. I know, cybersecurity isn't something you think about, and hey, if I didn't see hundreds of companies being attacked by ransomware every minute, I'd probably think the same. Luckily for you, this is your one-stop shop to learn all the ins, the outs, the good and the bad, and the ugly around cybersecurity. So strap yourselves in, folks. Today's guest is Aman. Aman, how are you doing today?
Hi, Steve. Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So, Amon, I'd like you just, if you can, tell us a little bit about yourself. From everything that I've read, you are in the insurance space, specifically insurance, right?
Yes and no, but yeah, I'll build on that a bit. So,
Okay.
yeah, been a little over 2.5 decades in the insurance industry. Been largely across the Middle Eastern markets, in the Indian markets, and now in the North American markets. So, the first half of my career, I'd say 80% of my career was in the corporate world. So, that's the hardcore experience of the industry while being inside different players across the world, different companies. And 2020, I started off my own business, which is a insure tech. It's a company called B4E Insure Tech, based in Canada. And this company is specifically designed for rule-based, pre-underwritten insurance products and cyber, which happens to be one of the biggest talking points within the industry as we speak today, is also something that we work on, and that's how some of our clients are using our system to deploy retail mass market cyber products so that individuals can also get access to cyber protection. So what you mentioned earlier is ransomware, malware, uh, you know, some basic stuff that people don't know about, and they're very prone to be an easy target. Uh, so that's a brief introduction of what we do.
Okay. So, what brought you into the space, really? Like, what was like that moment where you said, "This is what I want to do"?
Well, I think as a professional, everyone has an aspiration that if you're very happy with your 9 to 5, and then you want to retire doing the same, it's pretty simple, pretty easy to continue doing the same. But I kind of had a different ambition along the way where I felt that there was more that I can do for the industry, but there's more that I could do for the end consumers. And there's that stage when you start realizing that you can't leverage your experience and you can't offer everything back to the industry or to the consumers if you stay within the constraints of the corporate world. So that was my motivation and that was my ticker. So 2020 is when I took the decision to hop off the corporate bandwagon and start something of my own. And, and then never looked back since.
That's amazing because it takes a lot to really go out there and do it on your own. I mean, there's so much risk involved, and then really learning the field and being able to say, "Hey, I can do this." That's a really big thing. Um, so yeah, I mean, we do. I being in this in similar space of cybersecurity with data backups and disaster recovery. I mean, you were mentioning about the targets and everything that that it's people think that, oh no, I'm not going to be a target, I'm too small, and then it turns out they're the prime target for an attacker because they know that they probably haven't invested in the security framework that like larger companies have invested in. So yeah, that's just amazing. Again, that you did that 4 years ago, and you did it during COVID, which is even better. So and succeeded. So my hat's off to you if I was wearing it. But my
Thank you.
hat's off. Um, so yeah, can we just explore a little bit? What's the really if you were to talk to a regular business owner, what would you say is the difference between cyber insurance and cyber security?
Okay, so I think this is the easy response is the cybersecurity is a preemptive approach before the
Hmm.
event happens. So you would then go and speak to cybersecurity professionals, and you would deploy data protection, data encryption, data privacy protocols on your own network, on your own database. You would have multi-factor authentication being used by all your employees. You would be using devices which are secure, which have antivirus on it. So you do all the basic stuff that you need to do in order to protect your business from any potential attacks on your business. But cyber attack is the other way around. So these people are very clever, and they know that you've not taken consideration of the risk that your business is at, and you've left the opportunity open for hackers to get into your business, and they could take over your website, they could take over your client database, they could just kill your entire email, get access to all your emails. So interestingly, I know of a case where this client was using just simple email to coordinate with a client of theirs, and their client would obviously give the service and everything, and then they would raise an invoice, and the client would then transfer money back to their bank account. So this individual had been sending invoices without realizing that his email had been hacked. And so he raised an invoice which was to a client based in the Switzerland, and the invoice amount was about, I think, 42,000 US. And what he did not realize was that this hacker had been observing that pattern. And right after the invoice was raised, the hacker used the email, sent updated bank account information through the email, and then wipe clean any trace of that email from the mailbox. So experience taught the client that you would receive the payment within 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. It wouldn't be more than that. Now, of course, he did not expect and he did not realize that there's something else that had already happened. And by the time he realized and he raised a red flag and he followed up on the third day that where is the payment, they said that you've given us instructions to update a new bank account. We're still doing that. Once it's done, we would be able to transfer the payment over to you. So,
Oh,
so that's where the red flag went up. He did not even realize that the money was not going to come to him. so,
oh no.
so it's very simple. These kind of attacks are very, very simple. People don't realize that even having a multi-factor authentication it can be a very, very big security protocol that could save them tons of money, and of course credibility, because this was just a payment that was being taken away. God forbid someone had sent out some nasty emails from your business email address to all your clients. Um, it could have just jeopardized the entire credibility. So yeah,
Could you just for the folks who don't know what it is, could you just explain a little bit about multi-factor authentication, what it is, how it works?
sure. So multi-factor authentication, or MFA, is a protocol which is allowed and being provided by most, I believe, almost all email providers, whether you use Microsoft, whether you use Google, or any other for that matter. And what that does is it allows you to download a authenticator app on your device and then connect your email ID through that device. And what that literally does is no one can get access to your email without entering your password, and then also entering an authentication code, which then can only be generated by a authentication app, which is on your mobile phone. So it's a combination of those two, which will give access to your email address. And this is now available across websites, domains, email IDs. So pretty much everything in the market today. So like banks use OTPs, um, the corporate world uses MFAs, multi-factor authentication apps, which gives a certain layer of protocol safety for your business accounts, and then so on and so forth. They are not the 100% safe,
Mhm.
but yes, it's better than having nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of like leaving your locking your door versus leaving your door unlocked and open for the whole world.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
For the viewers out there, folks, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, and another one that I personally recommend is Duo. for for access to like your desktop and some other applications. Very easy to use. And the other good thing about it is that, like Aman said, is that in order for someone to be able to compromise your account, they have to have access to your phone, and so it makes it very very hard to get in to an account that's been secured by MFA.
Pretty much.
So there's for insurance, when you bring cyber insurance and cybersecurity together, right? Companies out there, companies such as mine and some and others out there who also do auditing to make sure everybody's the best practices and making sure that they have a cybersecurity plan in place, disaster recovery, backups, and all that. Can you explain how that, to a potential business owner, or somebody maybe who's starting out, or maybe even someone who's seasoned, how that can help them save money on the insurance side by having something that's documented, that, like I said, that they have the backup and disaster recovery plan, up to best practices.
Sure. See, so I think it's not just about saving money on the insurance side. I think the way a business owner should be looking at having a proper cybersecurity strategy in place is that you would not really get access to any insurance if you don't have that in place. Most of the insurance companies would just refuse offering you a proper cover if you don't have a basic cybersecurity strategy in place within your organization. And that's how insurers would look at it, because at the end of the day, risk has to be finite, risk has to be measurable for an insurer to price it properly. But if it's infinite, insurers would more often than you would like, would decline the risk. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, given the date and time that we live in today, it is just a matter of time that one would get affected or be a victim of a cyber attack, and they would not realize it until the time it's too late. So making sure that you do have at least a bare minimum level of security within your organization, as a small business, as a medium-sized business, or a large business, or even as an individual, it's a necessity. It's no longer a luxury that the way it used to be back in the day. And again, just to share another example, so this company in Canada hired a bunch of interns, and they had advertised for these interns online through LinkedIn. Interns came in, they started working, and so on and so forth. Someone had hacked the email address. No, actually, did not even hack the email address. They just spoofed an email address which had just the name of the line manager, and they sent out a specific email to one of the interns asking them to go out and buy prepaid cards, and saying that we were going to be using these to give rewards to employees, so why don't you just go out, pay cash, and buy them, and we'll reimburse it to you later on. So the employee didn't know as much, just thinking that they would want to go out and do what they've been told, without realizing and vetting and re-verifying whether the email really did originate from the line manager. They ended up losing a bit of money there. So again, like I said, I mean, these kind of things are just happening everywhere, everywhere. I mean, you've got the grandfather scams, you've got people just walking away with your device, and then getting access to it just because you put on a very weak password on it, or you forgot your device somewhere, and then someone picks it up and hacks into your company's network. These things are very common nowadays.
That seems like a social engineering. That's like one of the, a form of a cybersecurity attack is, and one of the easiest is social engineering. So for the viewers out there who aren't really, familiar with what that is, it's a lot of what Aman said. But you can also have somebody from, HR. They walk out into the parking lot, they see a USB stick on the ground, and then trying to be a good Samaritan, they plug it into the computer, and then all of a sudden the whole network's affected, is infected, and it becomes a big thing. So definitely, if you're not sure where a device came from, don't touch it.
Pretty much. And yes, and that's where the problem is. I mean, you have to have enough education, you have to have enough training happening for your employees. They need to be aware. You need to have constant communication going out, letting people know that these are the kind of risks that they are exposed to on a daily basis. Of course, the strategy has to be there that you have basic protocols which will protect your business, and then the communication side of it, or the creating awareness side of it, is just something that you have to do continuously.
And kind of going back and forth, but it'll come together. Um, would you say that the more that a company has invested in cybersecurity, the more likely that they'd be able to actually purchase the cyber insurance, an insurance company would be more likely to take them on because they could see that the risk would be less.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, from a insurance company's point of view, insurers would like to understand the risk. The more that they are able to understand the exposure that they are going to be bringing on their books, the more comfortable they would be offering better terms in terms of premiums, and maybe even a wider coverage if you require to have a wider coverage for your business. So most certainly, it definitely would help a business to have uh, a proper strategy in place, a proper all the checks and balances in place to allow insurers to give them better terms, not just accept the risk.
Yeah. So kind of, staying in that area of of questioning and subject. For folks out there, a lot of good things to do. And Aman, I think I would definitely like your opinion on this. Is when you're setting up your network and whatnot, you really want to use the concept of least privilege or zero trust,
Yeah,
so that everybody has just enough to do what they need to do their jobs in whatever department that they're in, and then they don't have access to anything else, which also helps mitigate those some of those social engineering attacks, because now something is now confined to a smaller space, which is easier to detect. Would you agree with that, Aman?
absolutely. I think that's just standard business governance that needs to be in place with every organization because, uh, again, there are times when you are exposed to both inside and outside threat as an organization. And if you have proper governance protocols in place, uh, which define who gets what privilege and access to what part of the business in terms of data, in terms of financial rights, in terms of decision making, it helps the business to a large extent to avoid or mitigate risks in a large way. Um, so yeah, definitely that helps.
um so one thing I'm curious about is how a cyber insurance company would go about verifying that a company has the safeguards in place that they state that they have in place. Is there, like, does the insurance company do its own audit, or do they rely on a third party to do the audit?
So it's actually all three of them. So the client is expected to do audits on their own.
Hmm.
So they would have so a client should have their own internal audit checks across the network that they've deployed. Uh, the second, of course, the insurance company can have a third party which is retained by them to do those audits for them, and that report then becomes essential for them to understand the risk and then price the risk. Versus they could even have an in-house team which would be able to do that for them. But then I think nowadays it's more about outsourcing. It's just not about bringing that talent within the insurance organization. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, and just forgive me for kind of going on a tangent here. For you mentioned that companies would have like an internal source to do the auditing and stuff. Do you find that to be reliable? Because I mean, I'm not saying that that a company would purposely lie or fudge, or the information on a report. But for me, I'm thinking that it's better that to have a third party objective person go in there, because now there's nothing that's going to be missed, or, oh well, this is our company policy, so this policy might overlap this control and stuff like that, and where so they might think that something is okay where it's not.
Well, I think mid to large size organizations would definitely outsource.
Hmm.
They should. Again, just to build on the point that you've just mentioned, the more you have an outside view on your business and on the security protocols that you put in place and the evaluation of the risk of your network, the better it is for you. Uh, Smaller organizations are very price sensitive and they can be very picky and choosy on how they choose to invest into building their own cyber security strategy. But mid to large size, definitely they would outsource. Large organizations would have an in-house team also looking at it. They would have proper softwares in place, but then they would still get the external audit done.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I'm very interested in this space, so I might just pepper you with a bunch of questions.
Sure.
But so, what what are some things that, besides not having these plans in place, any type of cybersecurity plan in place, is there anything else that could disqualify a, business owner or a business entity from getting cyber insurance?
Okay, so another example of this is that clients who start a business, they generally end up outsourcing the development and the creation, the building of their infrastructure, their digital infrastructure to a third party, right? So generally, what happens is people go out and look for the cheapest vendor. So someone's building a website for them, someone's setting up their network, someone is doing the procurement for the devices, and so on and so forth. Now, when you bring that all in together, or even if you're using a third-party software without realizing whether the software has been tested or not, is it hack-proof or not? Uh, Now, clients who are not tech savvy would not know what it takes in order to secure their business digitally. So when they do that, the insurer who's trying to look at their risk or their business would want to look at all those things. Who else other than the business has access to your digital assets? Who's controlling what? And if you're not able to answer those questions, or if you give the wrong answers to those questions, an insurer would not be very keen to look at that risk then. So it becomes very important that your digital assets are owned within the company. You are keeping your data, your client data, your business data on premise or within your own cloud environment. Unlike a lot of clients who we know, they're not even aware that their data is leaving the country and going somewhere else. So, so now, even though you've got these regulatory requirements across the globe, every country has come down very hard on it, and they clearly dictate that data cannot leave the country's geographical boundaries. Yet, clients are not aware of how their data is being treated, and that's why we see all of these data breaches and data leaks happening across different players in the world. So, without naming names, but I think we've all seen tons of those happening.
Yeah. Um, so I know, and I'm again kind of going on a tangent here. I know you are familiar with what happened with CrowdStrike and the whole everything that happened with Microsoft, so servers and stuff like that. Would you say that it's fair to say that if companies had a very strong backup and disaster recovery procedure, that this could have been mitigated a lot faster? They could have come back online a lot faster.
Yeah, so I mean that's a typical case of having all your eggs in the same basket, right? That's
Hmm.
exactly what uh, every business tells you, that you should never ever have all your eggs in the same basket. So that's the basic underlying risk mitigation that you need to do. Now, having said that, uh, in this case, while most of the larger organizations or even some of the mid-sized organizations would have a BCP plan in place, so business continuity or off base data centers or networks, but everything is on Windows. So I mean, CrowdStrike happens, and that happens not just in your primary location, but also happens on your BCP locations. So your business is just shut down, and you've got nowhere else to go. and that's the funny thing about risk mitigation, and professionals who should have ideally seen this coming. I mean, it's not very difficult to visualize a risk that your entire network is riding on one single OS. And if that OS goes down, your entire business goes down.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can say with confidence that having, one of the easiest ways to have fixed that would be to know, what the CrowdStrike IPs were, blocking them on the firewall, and then doing a restore from the day before or even hours before the attack
Yeah,
happened. And then everybody could have been right back up, and then this wouldn't have been the disaster that it was.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that would have been the logical way to do it, right? But because everything went down, how do you recover? Where do you recover from?
Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically, you've got to have at least, one device that was not affected by it. I mean, even if it's just, it's just your iPad, you can log into a web portal somewhere that,
Yeah,
hosts your backup data to start restoring it. You can do that.
yeah,
Yeah. So I was just, I was fascinated by what happened with CrowdStrike, and all the funny things that have come out because of it. I mean, on social media there has been a plethora of memes that have come out because of it. And but you really think about the seriousness of this. CrowdStrike is not the only cybersecurity company out there that does something like this. So
yeah.
it's not just CrowdStrike that's vulnerable to this. It's any cybersecurity company that is sitting there monitoring your data and is shooting out updates. And you know, I think that, and this is just my opinion, there should be also a way to, before allowing that update into your environment, it should be going into a development environment, seeing how that affects it, and
Absolutely.
then putting that to production.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there should be any other way.
Mhm.
You cannot just roll something out at such a scale without having run through various different levels of checks. And, you know, you do that anyways with any software, right?
Mhm.
How can an update just be sent out across such a vast network at such a scale, and then realize that, you've pretty much brought the whole digital infrastructure of the world down to its knees? It should not happen. I mean, our network is across both iOS and Windows, uh, and we've deliberately done that because I mean, we were not thinking that a CrowdStrike could happen, but we were just thinking that, what if one machine went down, you still have access to the other machine. We've got backups on Azure or AWS, but you do all of those simple basic risk mitigation. So
Absolutely. And, like you were talking about having multiple operating systems out there. One thing I can say is that there's a lot of businesses out there that I've encountered that at least do have a small amount of different devices other than Windows. A lot of people who have, let's say, marketing departments and stuff like that, or in type of visual departments. They're usually running on Macs.
Mhm.
So now those computers become the most valuable computers in the organization because everything was taken down. Hold on 1 second. So yeah, that was yeah. I just remember some of the companies I've worked for, and they've done that, and I remember during the whole CrowdStrike thing when it happened, I was thinking, wow, those computers are now the most valuable in the whole company.
Yeah, it's always an after effect, right? I mean, you suddenly
Yeah.
realize that this could have been, initially you look at the cost of buying certain expensive equipment, but at the end of the day, you do realize there was more value than just buying the hardware for the purpose of, letting employees work in a certain department.
And now you got the whole tech team right on top of you because yours is the only computer that's working.
Yeah, and I mean, the more you look at the way the world is progressing and the way tech is evolving, you do start realizing that it's good to be connected, but then you need to have a certain portion of your infrastructure which is manually being updated, or manually being managed, but it's not connected to the net. And I think that's one big takeaway of from this incident that you do need to have infrastructure, digital infrastructure, which is not 24 by 7 connected to the net. So again, I think learnings, more learnings, I guess.
So I am curious about something, and this has been a question that I have asked multiple cybersecurity experts. But what would make a company, especially a business owner, shy away from wanting to get cyber insurance?
Okay, so I think I can summarize that into broadly 2 points. One is that people think that their business is too small and
Okay.
therefore is of no interest to anyone. Uh, what they don't realize is that ignorance is not bliss in this case. Your business may be big or small, it doesn't make a difference if it's even if it's got a few $100,000 in it, it's of interest to someone somewhere. Uh, the second is the part where people are just unaware about what does it mean to protect your business and why does it come at a certain cost. So when you combine those two together, you have a perfect situation where one, I'm indestructible. No one can touch me. No one can hurt my business. It's mine, and that's the end of it. And second is, of course, I don't see the value in spending money on securing my business or my digital assets. And no one's been able to explain it to me why I should be able to, why should I be doing that? So I think awareness is possibly one of the biggest, and that's pretty much common with insurance throughout the industry, right? Everyone starts wondering about, I should get insured after they see someone within their circle getting affected by something which they never thought could happen. So financial loss is at the peak, or the risk of financial risk being exposed through a certain person or a certain business is at the peak when you see someone else going through it. So, yeah.
So just to reiterate, can you please dispel the it can't happen to me mentality? Can you just to help out some of the viewers? Because in my with going out through different careers I've had in the IT space before starting my own business, this was a big thing. And it was like, well, we're just this company, we only operate in a small little area. Nobody really knows about us. We don't need all this. Can
Well,
you help dispel that mentality or, discourage that mentality?
so again, like I said, I mean, it stems from the fact that you are not aware of what cyber risk is and what it could mean to a business, big or small, doesn't make a difference. Uh, Everything that a business owns today has very heavy dependency on the digital assets that you have within your business. Even something as simple as your email or a website, if taken away from you, could you bring your business down in a split of a second? If someone takes away your client database, if someone takes over your bank accounts, if someone takes over your website, and you are only limited by your imagination to the extent of damage that someone can do to your business. Uh, People don't realize that you are still accessing your bank accounts through your digital infrastructure. Something as simple as that exposes you to cyber risk at any time whenever you log in. Now, people think that you have an OTP on your bank account setup and therefore you are secure. OTP is no longer secure. It is no longer secure. I mean, the password, getting your password is an easy peasy thing for a hacker. Getting your OTP is no longer a very difficult task for them either. Now I mean, I don't want to say this out loud, but people can get access to your phone and people can get the OTP that you get on your phone or clone your SIM. There are so many different ways that hacker can get the OTP also. And the first thing that they would do is they'll change the mobile number on your bank so that the transactions don't get flagged on your phone. You don't get SMS alerts, you don't get email alerts, and they'll wipe you clean.
So just for the viewers out there who are not sure what OTP is, that's a one-time passcode, and that's usually something that's like sent in a text message to you. Sometimes emailed, which is even worse, just because, just as Aman said, if your email account's been compromised, you've got a hacker or a bad actor out there that, you're trying to log into a website or they want to log into your bank account. Your bank is sending the one-time passcode, and they have access to your email. That whole layer of protection no longer exists. So that's a big thing. Um, and
We've sorry, Steve. So I'll just give you another example. So we've seen stuff which is within the organization uh, where we've seen that people went out, hacked into the email IDs of someone different within the organization within a different function, and sent out an email to someone else within the organization asking them to do something different than what was expected and what was required to be done. And that exposes the organization to massive financial risk. Uh, and these are bad apples within the organization. These are not even external risks. So if you don't end up protecting your network, if you don't have proper email encryption, and and that's where the audits come in, right? I mean, if you're not doing the audits, you will not know who hacked into what and who got access to what and sent out what at what time, what device was being used, what IP was being used. You are exposing yourself to these risks, and if you remember the good old Superman movie, I think back in the day where this guy was sitting in the office and ripping the business off massive amounts of money. Uh, that was back in the day.
yeah. um, so with the business insurance, and I know this is going to kind of sound like a silly question, but let's say someone they were accepted into getting the business insurance, they have the policy up and whatnot, and then they get ransomware. How much, what's usually the percentage of what is recoverable for whatever they have to pay for a ransom, or does the insurance company pay the ransom? How does something like that work when a company has the cyber insurance?
So again, it'll depend a lot about on the cover that they've got in place. If they have a cover which protects them against a certain amount of risk, there would be certain ceilings on the total amount that the insurance company can pick up. Of course, there would be certain deductibles that the client has to pay in. But once it's been established that the strategy was in place, all the security protocols that were mentioned on the policy document were actually in practice and enforced by the client, that's when the insurer would feel comfortable and they would settle the claim. But there would definitely be an investigation, and that's also one of the reasons why cyber insurance is very tricky, because it's very very difficult to do a thorough and proper investigation and find out the actual cause of what really happened. So
Is part of that investigation that the cyber insurance company does, is that do they report what's happened to law enforcement?
yeah,
It is okay, or is that up to the client?
no. It has to go to the law enforcement, because eventually, if there is a recovery,
Hmm.
then the insurer would be the beneficiary in that case. If they've settled the claim, then the insurer then becomes the beneficiary of whatever recovery happens.
Okay. Yeah, I know that. There's with a lot of the larger cybersecurity attacks. Specifically, one comes to mind from 2021, I think it was, with the Colonial Pipeline attack in the United States. They got the FBI and Department of Justice involved, and uh, they were only actually able to recover half of what Colonial Pipeline spent because of the ransomware was paid in Bitcoin, and the value of Bitcoin just kind of goes like this. So they were only able to get about half of what they spent. So speaking towards that, if someone is asking to, if someone is being ransomware and they're being asked to be paid in Bitcoin, what would you suggest that somebody does to not do that and not get themselves in a position where they're going to lose all this money?
So I'm not sure there's much of a choice being given at that stage. So if you have to pay someone off, uh, you really are not at the liberty to decide on how you would pay off and then get access back to your data. But having said that, if you are insured and you have the proper cover in place, your financial risk is largely limited. The business itself might still be exposed even after you've got your claim settled by an insurer because of other downtime issues. But having said that, uh, law enforcement would typically evaluate the situation at that point in time, and then they would advise if you should continue to pay in Bitcoin, or you have another way to. You see, Bitcoin is the most preferred because it can't be traced. So that's why people who are in this business of hacking people and then scamming people off, they prefer that channel of payment because it just can't be traced back to anyone. Uh, and then again, I mean, any other payment method can be traced. It would have a digital footprint, and that can be traced back to whoever is the recipient, wherever they may be.
Right. And yeah, you're correct that, I 100% agree with you that Bitcoin is extremely difficult to trace, if not impossible. But at the same time, who's ever accessing the Bitcoin through the blockchain and into some wallet, that's traceable. So that's something that, I know that, law enforcement would handle. And, there's just, it's just amazing, how far we've come in technology, that the better we get with technology, the more that we come out with technology, the easier it is to have it, compromised. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and there was something that Mr. Scott said one time. He said, the more they overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain. Um, and I think that applies to technology, right? Because we're sitting there and we're thinking, oh, we've got all these great things in place. We've got all these controls in place. We're good. We've got this infrastructure set up. Our firewall is top notch. We've had all that audited. And all it takes is somebody, that's trying to be a good Samaritan to now infect the entire network.
You're absolutely right. So I mean, with the evolution, there would always be uh, opportunity to progress and then opportunity to bring down everything. And there's always going to be someone who's going to be smart enough, who's going to be figuring out how to find a way around whatever tech that you have, whatever security protocols you have, whatever firewalls you have, and generally, as the saying goes, you're just as strong as your weakest link, and they would find it and they would exploit it. So yeah.
Um, so what are just some practical advice and kind of to safeguard your business? What do you think, like, the if you had to give like the top five steps that would be, in your opinion, critical to protecting yourself? What do you think, if you could like kind of list those out and talk about them a little bit, what would you think those would be, especially from someone who's in the cyber insurance field, like something that they would look at to make sure that you definitely have in place?
So in my mind, I think the first and the foremost most important thing is that while businesses continue to protect themselves, which they should, uh, individuals also need to start thinking about protecting their own digital footprint on the net very carefully. So while an organization has proper protocols, encryptions, and firewalls, and so on and so forth, individuals need to get proper antivirus on their own devices, and that's a spend that they need to do to invest to protect themselves. So I think that's becoming more and more evident as we speak today, uh, because you don't know if someone's going to be misusing your asset, your digital asset, to get across and get do harm to your business, and then your credibility is at risk. So I think that's something that needs to be done. Um, Creating awareness is possibly the most important after that. Uh, Even when we speak to people today, we realize that there is very less awareness around the risk that is evident, whether it's a small organization or a large organization. People are just not aware. So people need to invest into doing research, into sharing that research with their, not just the tech folks, but the non-tech folks also, and bringing them up to speed on how things can go south. And this can't be once a year exercise or once a quarter exercise, and then you think that things are okay now. It doesn't work like that. You have to share examples. You have to give tangible examples of how things went wrong in different parts of the world with different organizations, and then you have to make people accountable, because at the end of the day, it's your online L&D projects that you have, that every organization makes you go through. Everyone knows they're not doing what they were supposed to do. Uh, Employees do not really remember that from the moment they start the test until the time they end the test, and then it's all gone. So there has to be, unfortunately, in my mind, there still has to be awareness which creates necessary fear of how things could go wrong or what things can go wrong. Uh, so I think that that's a big part of the entire um, digital security protocol, that strategy that needs to be built in place into organizations. The third would be that every organization has to have internal, external audits, but they have to have those audits in regular time and day, so that they know if there is any exposure, they are able to plug those exposures on time. And even if they do cost, they come at a cost, they need to be done. It's no longer a luxury. Um, the fourth would be that uh, insurance is again something that you need to get done. It's, again, I mean, I'm not saying because I'm part of the industry. I'm just saying that it's something that needs to be put in place, and it needs to be done with proper advice. It should not be done just because your IT guy came and told you that you need to insure yourself or your business. uh, he's not an expert. He literally is not an expert on how to evaluate the risk that your organization faces. So you have to get a professional to come in and do that work for you, and then give you that proper advice. So, and then I think the last one is to periodically review the entire digital strategy that you've put in place, just so that you are aware if there are things moving. If and there are moving parts, right? There is no static nature to the risk that comes across. So you have to continue to upgrade your knowledge. You have to continue to upgrade your strategy, and all the tactical initiatives that you need to put in place in order to keep your business safe.
Um, for business owners who are not of the technical mindset, and that is not meant as any type of disparaging remark to any business owner, how would you recommend raising this awareness and providing education to the workforce that's under them to do this? Because a lot of companies, they have what they call the cybersecurity training, where okay, they go through something and then okay, great. It's like you said, it sticks with them for maybe a couple of days and then it's back to business as usual. What would be something that you would recommend that would keep that cycle going?
So I'd say that there are a lot of these private organizations which are out there, which are far more competent, and they do provide the niche knowledge uh, that pertains to this business. Um, Outsourcing is not a bad thing. When you need to start creating awareness, it's not a bad thing. And then nowadays, you're not really restricted to get your people from different parts of the world to come into an office and attend that training. You could literally run the training digitally from anywhere, and just get experts to come in and talk to your people, talk to your employees. So it's not that difficult deal, but it's just that people need to understand how important doing this is. Uh, and that's where we constantly feel that innovation and evolution on the tech side continues to expose your business to new risks, and unless and until you keep abreast with those new risks, you will never be ready to protect your business as that evolution happens. So you'll keep on. he'll just be caught off guard. So I mean, phishing has been like, I don't know. I mean, it's not even a new thing. But businesses fall prey to phishing attacks even today's time and date. Now, why does that happen? Every IT security training that you do talks about phishing,
Yeah.
and yet it happens.
And it can happen, even to people who are trained, it can happen. I'm not even embarrassed to say it has happened to me, but luckily it was actually inside of
Okay.
um, a training period. Sometimes, the day is just so fast paced that people forget, myself included, to slow down a second and actually, like you said, make sure it's coming from your manager and it's not coming from somebody outside. I have done
Yeah,
that. It was years ago, but I have done it. So, and I do consider myself a professional in the field. So it's not, it's not something that's a non-technical or a non-technical person is susceptible to.
I,
It's to anybody.
I agree. I agree, and then that's what makes a hacker's day shine, I guess.
So would you say that, one of the things that I've always thought about, especially in the onboarding process in, when someone's being hired into a business, would be a cybersecurity training. So, you're in there that first day, you're filling out all that paperwork, you're signing away your firstborn, your right kidney, to the company. Um, and then, having something in there during that time where they're being taught about phishing attacks. They're being taught about social engineering. They're being taught about things that they don't have to have a lot of access to do to kind of help mitigate some of these attacks from even happening, because everyone's always thinking that, oh well, it's only going to happen to these people, to the high, to the executives or whatever. But really, the easiest target for any bad actor is someone who's in manufacturing or someone who's just not really in that tech field. So would you say that that is something that it would be wise for business owners to do right on that onboarding process to make people
Absolutely, and like I said, I mean, it's not just at the time of the onboarding; it's an ongoing process.
aware? Mhm.
And if you're able to demonstrate live examples of how things went bad uh, from non-tech people who were typically in some part of the business which was not very critical per se from the optics point of view, uh, people would be able to relate to what could go wrong and how they might be exposing the business to risks which they can't even anticipate that they are real in nature. So yeah, I mean, just simple things like people end up you're preparing a presentation for the management, or you're just preparing a data sheet for your line manager, and you decide that you want to send that data over to your personal email address and then work on it once you're back home. You don't know what you've done. I mean, that might be with the best interest, but you don't know what you've done, and that's a breach right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of email providers now, especially the big wigs like Microsoft, Google, and companies like that. They, even with the best intentions, their antivirus and anti-malware scanners are not foolproof. So
Obviously.
yeah, so I mean, when people are, like as you said, I know I got to get this report done. I was so busy throughout the day. Let me just email myself all this stuff, and I'll check it when I get home. And they're sending it to their personal account instead of just logging into their business account, you know, and then all of a sudden, oh no, what have I done? Because now everything just got infected, and they don't even know it because they don't know that they're infected. And then
Absolutely.
brings now that now it's thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in the business to try just to even investigate what's gone wrong.
You're right.
So there's I agree 100% that there's got to be policies, procedures, and controls in place and awareness raised. And there's a lot of companies out there that are now even putting out like posters throughout the organization to make sure everybody it's there and it's in their face. And I 1,000% agree with you that it's an evolving thing. It's not a one and done. or it's not something that you do quarterly. Cybersecurity starts from the second you wake up to the second, and
Absolutely.
it's not just for a business owner. It doesn't matter what part of the company, what role you play in the company. You are part of that company, so that's the biggest. You are the biggest target.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think I second everything that you said. So yeah.
Thank you. So, just want to really thank you for your time today, Aman. I mean, it's been an honor and a privilege getting to talk to you, and just the breadth of technical knowledge that you have. It's actually refreshing because I've talked to other people, and a lot of them will give very vague answers, and I appreciate you going into depth and the being in specifics of everything. So I can't thank you enough for being on today's show. Um, yeah, do you have anything else you might want to bring in real fast? Anything, any announcements, anything you want to plug?
So firstly, thank you for having me, Steve, and it was a pleasure to be here and to speak to you, and of course share some bit of my experience. I mean, I think we deliberately tried to keep it as watered down, as non-technical as possibly we could, so that more people can get more out of this podcast than just a handful of people. But yeah, I mean, we are in the business of insure tech. So we provide the infrastructure to insurers who are willing to develop these products, which are parametric in nature. So parametric is basically, you pay off the claim as and when the incident happens, or embedded products, which are part of other propositions, but the insurance is part of that proposition. So we do offer this kind of a software to MGAs, to insurers, and to reinsurers. And yeah, so if someone is keen to build on these products, uh, please look us up. We'll be more than happy to help.
Thank you so much, and that's great. So that's really about all the time we have today, folks. Just remember to subscribe to us and tune in, next time for our next podcast for our next guest, who will remain a mystery until the next podcast. So I'd like to thank you, Aman. If you could just stick around for just another minute or two, that would be great. And for the rest of you, I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.